I don't know if this is a viable career, but I want to do it at least one more time. There was just so much doubt. I finally doing the thing I always dreamed of doing.
New camera alert! Oh, your boy and his boy collaborated. This is our first joint purchase. I might have to sign a contract in case we have some kind of divorce of sorts. I'm just gonna cut to the chase. Is it possible making your childhood dream or your passion your success? I feel like most people I know are not quote unquote successful from their passions. Perhaps it's because it's too early and they're not quote unquote successful yet. Mostly though, I think it has to do with the notion that you kind of have to choose between passion or success. I mean, like a lot of people are passionate about the arts or things that are, less practical. There is this trade-off between, okay, either you're going to choose the conventional successful path and build a good life, make a lot of money, or you're going to forego that and you're going to live your passion life, and maybe you'll make it, maybe you won't. The people who are in the latter category of chasing their passions, the number of times we've heard something like, oh my God, like you are so brave for doing that. You are so brave for chasing your passions. I could never do that. I can never do that. I'm not brave like you. In this quarter life period, it feels like you have to choose between success or passion. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. And Exhibit A is our guest for today. Someone who is like literally, by objective standards, successful at the age of 25, which is crazy. And she's living her passions. And me personally, I love hearing stories, success stories about people who are just like living their best life and what it's like to be quote unquote successful and to reach your childhood dream. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this later, but I'm coming to terms with the fact that I probably will not be living my childhood dream. My childhood dream was to be an actor, and now I'm coming to terms with the fact that that probably won't happen. And that's okay because I've changed. I have new passions. I have new adult dreams that I really want to achieve. I hope that it's kind of like an inspirational moment for you because we need a little bit of inspiration right now. Without further ado, here is my interview with Julia RIEW, composer, novelist, lyricist, artist. Her book started going on pre-order, y'all. It's called The Last Tiger. It's already like topping the charts on Amazon. We don't need to talk about it. Also wrote the book, Music and Lyrics for the new original musical Endless, which features an expansive celestial mythological universe and a cinematic pop score. She has her upcoming fantasy novel, The Last Tiger, which we just talked about, as well as MG fantasy novel, Shim Jung Takes the Dive, which is slated for 2026. Other upcoming projects include a YA sci-fi comedy thriller novel and 2 more musicals slated for development in Korea. She is the 18th annual Fred Ebb Award winner, Playbill's featured songwriter of the month, a woman to watch on Broadway, a Princess Grace Award honorea, and just an all-around very bubbly, kind, positive spirit. Okay, let's go into it. So we're online. Julia RIEW, welcome to Know So True.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. It's kind of funny because I feel like these days I really have been going back and forth between when people ask me what do you do, whether I say composer lyricist first or author first, because I was a composer lyricist first, but I actually will be an author first in terms of things that are coming out first. So yeah, I get the long version is I'm a composer lyricist and an author.
Yes, but you've made it pretty big thus far at the age of 25.
25, yeah.
And so when you say that you're a composer, lyricist, and an author, like you are doing those things in the sense that you have books that are coming out, you have musicals that are coming out, as opposed to being
like aspiring.
Yes, an aspiring actor, aspiring whatever. Like you are doing that. But it seems like you've been aspiring to do that for a long time.
A long time, yeah. I mean, kind of as long as I can remember, I feel like I was aspiring to do these things. I mean, I started writing music when I was really young, but now that I think about it, I actually think I started writing like when I was in 5th grade, I tried, even maybe before that, I would like try to write books.
Yeah.
But I never like had that dream aspiration the same way that I was like, I want to write musicals as a career. Starting in 2nd grade, so I think I was 6, I would gather my friends and I'd say, okay guys, we're gonna put on a musical. And they'd give me, Julia, what are we doing today? And I'd say, we're gonna put on a musical
okay, leader.
for the teachers.
Okay.
I guess everyone was a theater kid in my elementary school, in my friend group, somehow. And so, yeah, I mean, drama class was my favorite class. Music class was my favorite class. I just felt like those were 2 classes where I could really be free and like get really creative. I also loved art class, like any class that was a creative class, even like language arts, like Spanish. I loved Spanish class, and I loved English class. I was like directing and coming up with musicals and coming up with plays. I'm putting air quotes around because dramaturgically they probably made no sense.
I mean, who knows? You could pull up the home tape. Like, you never know.
Oh, I used to. There were home tapes. My house actually burnt down when I was a kid, so we lost all of the home tapes. But
wait, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, so we lost a bunch of stuff when I was 7.
Really? Wait, in Missouri?
In St. Louis, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was little. And apparently I had like sleep problems for many years. I still have sleep problems actually because it burnt down in the middle of the night. So we have to like get up and like get out of the house. Do
people know that? Like, do your friends know that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's my fun fact sometimes, even though it's not very fun fact. My house burnt down, but yeah. So I used to like, but in my old house we had this kind of like staircase that led over a area of the house that overlooked the living room. Yeah. And so I used to, apparently when I was 6, go up there and sing Phantom of the Opera. Wow. In like my pajamas. And I'd be like, Mom, look. So I was always just like really, really into music, really into theater. I started composing when I was like 7 or 8. And when I was 12, my orchestra teacher saw me writing down some music on a loose leaf paper. I was writing a violin duet. And so then he said, oh, you know, if you expand that out for our full orchestra, we had a string orchestra at the middle school, so we can play it in the orchestra. So then I did, and that was like the first time that I had my music performed like on a stage with a big group, and that was when I was 12. And then that's like when
middle school, or is that
middle school. It was like, but at that same age, I also started writing some stuff in play form, like in script form. And then I was composing stuff for the orchestra, and then I was writing chamber music, and then I was playing ukulele, so I started songwriting. And then I think when I was like 14, 15, that's when it all came together, and I started writing musicals. Because it was like songwriting with some orchestral stuff, with storytelling, with scripts, and all that kind of came together. Like the first musical I ever wrote was with my brother. Yeah, we basically like started writing this musical when I think I was 15 or 16. We were working on it until my senior year of high school. And that was my first musical project, and that was like the most fun thing I ever did. Like, it was like that was like
your passion project.
Yes, it was my passion project, totally my passion project. And like it made me realize, I was like, when I go to college, I don't know if this is a viable career, but I want to do it at least one more time. Like I just want to do it one more time. Yeah, like I should have known what I wanted to do. And I think I did know what I wanted to do, but there was just so much doubt. At the time, if you asked me who my role models were, like I really wanted to be just like my parents when I grew up. And I wanted to be just like my friends' parents, like my best friend's parents and my parents, and so many people in my family were all doctors. And if you looked at like every really successful Asian man or woman that I admired when I was a kid, they were all doctors. And so I kind of like in my mind made the connection of like, oh, happy family, happy relationship, happy life, doctor. So I think in my mind, and I actually have some illustrations that I made around that age too, like my freshman year advisor was like, draw a picture, where I was literally would like draw like 2 paths, and one of them was like, this is what my life will look like if I go into the arts, and this is what my life will go like if I'm pre-med. And pre-med, I could see what it looked like because I knew so many Asian Americans who had gone through that path. And also, when I was a kid, I grew up playing violin. I realized this recently, the only piece that I ever played written by a woman was my own pieces. And so like...
It's giving boss lady. It's giving trailblazer. It's giving it's a woman's world and we're lucky to be living in it. Beethoven, Mozart, Debussy, Julia Rowe. It's pretty if I do say so myself.
A really big priority for me has always been family, and has always been like, I really desire a traditional relationship and a family, and like I want to have kids.
Hey, Ring.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I don't know, I had it in my head that if I wanted to be an artist, I couldn't have a family for some reason, because I didn't know any artists with families, and I didn't know any people with families who were artists.
You didn't know artists.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think it was part of that, and then especially like at the time, now things are really different now.
Yeah.
But I would say before Crazy Rich Asians era,
Yes, 2018.
it was different. It was really different, the industry.
Different.
And so as a kid, there were no female composers or Asian American musical theater composers that I could look up to, and definitely not someone who was both. And I think that has now changed a lot.
That's really interesting, because I think that like it sounds like we had kind of similar childhoods in the sense of what we were interested in. Like I was also a theater kid, but I felt like I was a closeted theater kid. And my parents, I also thought I wanted to be a doctor. I had no idea why. Besides, it's just like, it's a good profession, and you help people, and you like talk to people. And if you like talking to people, you should be a doctor. For me, even when my parents weren't necessarily the most supportive, like I didn't think that it would be possible. But for you, it's not necessarily that your parents were standing in your own way. It's like they recognized this. But even still, because there wasn't, representation or something that you could point to and be like, that could be me.
Totally.
Like, that was like a closed door almost.
Totally. It was just, if you've never seen it, sometimes it's like, how can you even imagine it? I didn't have connections, and I didn't even know what that looked like. So it was almost just inconceivable. But that's where having mentors completely changed my life. When I started at Harvard, I enrolled as a theater, dance, media, and music major. And then it was really by Thanksgiving break, I had switched into pre-med because I thought it was impractical. So I actually came to school saying I want to study theater. And I think a lot of it had to do with I felt very isolated in those first few months. I think one of my priorities when I started at Harvard was I was really excited to meet other Korean Americans for the first time that weren't related to me. And I think, as I said, it was like a jarring experience to realize that culturally I was so different from who I thought were going to be exactly like me. And I think in my mind as a freshman, I attributed a lot of that to what I was studying. I was like, oh, I'm different. As time went on, I also saw, a lot of Harvard kids, they go pre-law and pre-med and pre-finance. But I think ultimately it was really the lack of mentorship and the lack of community. And so then when we started ASAP, it like completely changed, because we were like scrounging around to find each other. I remember we went up to each other. We were like, whoa, you're here. It felt like it was just us. But then as we started building this group, turns out there was not only a community, but there was a want for this, and there was like a need for this, because there were 2 other minority student groups on campus. There wasn't an Asian American performing arts group.
And previously, like in years past before I was even there had been multiple attempts to create an organization for Asians in the arts, and they had just kind of dissolved. Exactly.
Which
was so disheartening.
No, totally. And so then that's why like we started this club, and then we talked about, let's put on productions. But then there just wasn't material. So then we ended up having to write our own material. And then through that process, that is kind of when I think back of like the time that changed everything for me. And I know people often think it's like the TikTok, but it's really way before that. So it was during the East Side.
Which is a show.
The show that we wrote.
Yes. That you wrote.
Yes.
And
me and John and Jared and And so basically the whole point of the East Side was to essentially to recruit people for the club. I guess it was a big ASAP advertisement. So that's why I said it's going to be a one act, because nobody has time to go see a 2.5 hour show on campus. It's gonna be a one act. It's gonna be a musical it's gonna be comedy because people will want to go. It's gonna be pop music that people can learn really, really easily. And we ended up getting the biggest audition turnout.
Yes.
Which was crazy because before at auditions, my freshman year, I would be like the only Asian American person auditioning. And then,
Same. And I would also feel like it was like, even though, you know, Harvard is like a liberal bubble, I still was kind of like, how is it that my high school theater company was more colorblind than here?
Exactly.
Like, not saying that I was the most talented, but it was kind of a crushing moment when like my first semester, I didn't get, basically I wasn't in anything. I didn't cast in anything. And before that I put so much of my identity in performing in the arts. And so for that I was kind of like, whoa, like if I can't do this here and do the thing that I thought got me here, like, and then a year later or 2 years later, I guess would have been when Eastside happened.
Yeah. So then Eastside happened. We got the biggest audition turnout. We ended up, that year, our club went from literally having 3 members to having over 100 people on our email list. We sold out all the shows in the email list. And then we sold out all 5 performances. We basically filled the whole first 3 rows with kids from Chinatown. And I literally like peeked out from behind the curtain and I was watching the kids while they're watching the show. And I said like, wow, like I didn't experience that ever as a kid, getting to sit in a theater and look up and watch someone who looks like you on stage representing your culture. And I remember Feroz was like, you cannot be pre-med. Like he was like, you can't be pre-med. And I was like, wow, like I think that was a really, really big moment where I realized theater isn't just like, arts aren't just for fun. Often the things you see growing up impact who you envision yourself to be possible to become. So that was a really defining moment for me where I realized it's not only just something that I'm passionate about, it's something that you can change the world with the arts, or you can really impact an individual the way that I was impacted as an individual growing up. So
especially kids.
Exactly.
You know,
like young
giving
people.
them something that you could have benefited from yourself. You're like a living, breathing example of that. Of you made so many life decisions because you didn't have a moment like that.
Right. Totally.
Y'all, could art change the world? Tell me what you think, because I think about this all the time. I feel like have a much more jaded perspective than I did before, where I felt like representation matters and like having Asians on the screen, having authentic stories matter. And then, I mean, the short of it is like, I feel like I pursued Hollywood, or I tried to see and realizing like, wait, people don't care. It's a business. It's a risk-averse money-making machine, and and no one wants to make good stuff or real stuff or whatever. I talk about this with people all the time, is like, especially when we're getting in our existential bag and we're like, do I consider myself an artist? Do I not? Am I actually doing something by creating art? Julia's case is different because she's actually doing it. But I think that this is a burden that every aspiring artist has to come to when they're maybe haven't made it. Maybe they haven't been able to publish the book or been on the stage to be able to like spread the message that they want to. And so they have to ask themselves, and I had to ask myself, like, is the pursuit of getting here and the risk of never having my thing be seen worth the amount of effort? Because most of the time, I feel like the advice is you should be excited to do your art or to be your creative self without anyone seeing. But when you have the intention and the desire to create something that does resonate with people and change people's mind, then it does kind of matter if your thing is being seen or perceived. When you choose to be a creative, especially if you're putting like something more traditional aside, you kind of need to make the calculation of, is what I'm doing and what I'm creating more impactful? The stakes get higher, I think. And at some point for me, probably as an adult now, I feel like the representation element of it has kind of worn off. But I think that especially for young people, especially for kids, it can make a huge difference. Or maybe the way that I think about it now is like art is the precursor. It's like the first step in maybe getting people to change their minds or change their perspectives or see someone or a group of people differently. I can't help but think about like 18-year-old Julia like coming in like excited and then like totally kind of feeling diluted. Partially because of the environment of not fitting in as an Asian amongst other Asians.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Identity crisis.
Yeah, because I mean, so much. I think I have so many stories, and I think maybe something that I've experienced is like wanting so badly to stick out from the other Asians.
Yeah.
And that
I wanted to fit in.
You wanted to fit in.
Well, I got there. I remember the first conversation I had. They were like, speaking in Korean. I was like, oh, I don't actually speak Korean. Oh, but you understand, right?
Right.
No, my parents don't in Korean. Well, how could your parents not speak Korean? Right. They're Korean, right?
Are you adopted?
Yeah, and then, are you adopted? And I actually got that asked if I was adopted 3 times in the first 2 weeks. I'm 2.5.
Yeah.
The only Asians I knew were my best friend, who is very similar culturally to me.
Yeah.
And then my cousins who live in Tennessee and Connecticut and Michigan and Ohio.
Yeah.
So like in my mind, all Asian Americans were like just culturally like me. Then I went to college and learned I was the only 2.5 gen there. And so there were all these cultural things that I just didn't grow up with that now I actually have done a lot of work to learn about and rekindle.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really like I just wanted to fit in so badly.
One of my favorite quotes that I put on my wall as a teacher is, the opposite of belonging is fitting in. Wait, is that the correct quote? Y'all, I be out here flopping. Opposite of belonging is fitting in. Yes. And that is from our good friend, Brene Brown. Belonging is about being accepted for who you are, while fitting is about changing yourself to be accepted by others. Honestly, this quote kind of changed my life. Do I think any of my students actually registered that quote was on the wall? No. I commend people like Julia, who did the thing. And yes, like there was the mentorship, there was the community, there was the encouragement, but also like I think I was too much of a chicken. I think I wasn't brave enough to follow things unless there was evidence that they worked. It's the whole like, if there's a path, that means it's someone else's or whatever, where like I feel like I kind of played it safe when I was in college or in other pivotal moments in my life where I really tried to choose the thing that I thought other people thought was going to make someone successful, as opposed to really sticking to like, oh wait, this is what I love and this is what I care about. I feel like I was doing a lot of looking around and getting myself involved with, for example, like an organization, like a theater organization that I did at school, that I just kind of did because people who were successful or people who are successful in the entertainment industry went through that organization. It's called Hasty Pudding, whatever. But that's what I really admire in Julie, is just she didn't like fixate or try to attach herself necessarily to existing structures or things that could help her. It was like, no, this is what I love and I'm going to create something if it doesn't exist there. And so I'm very grateful that I got to collaborate with her on making this student organization, which I'm honestly really proud of. And it wasn't really until I interviewed Julia that I remembered how cool this thing was that we created.
In my mind, being an artist meant that I was disorganized and I had all these negative stereotypes about being an artist. Like I thought artist meant someone who's an outsider. I think I think it
or
like
almost a degenerate.
Exactly. Yeah. It was almost like equal to outsider. And so I think even though I knew that I was an artist, I told everyone I was pre-med and I was working on my history and science concentration. That was my primary in my joint. Yeah. And so I could say, oh, people say, what do you do? I say history his sci, and I'm pre-med. Because when I would lead with theater, there would be questions. And now there's still questions. There's always questions. You meet someone at a party, they say, what do you do? There's always questions.
Of course. I would imagine. Yeah. But now you're kind of like, oh yeah, I'm actively doing
exactly.
this.
Now I can answer the questions. Yeah.
Wow. And so I love that you said that, like, a lot of people think that it was kind of the TikTok, but it was before that.
It was so before that. Yeah. So then East Side happened. And then also Diane Borger, who was at the time the artistic producer at ART, she came to see the show, and then that was life-changing for me because Diane was my first mentor, and she was the one who gave me my first big job, which was to write the family show for the ART. So I wrote 2 musicals for the ART for their holiday programming, and she was really the first person who kind of like looked me in the eyes and said like, hey, if this is something you want to do, you could really have a career. Wow. And that changed my whole world.
It's like opportunity meeting. Oh my God, whatever the
the
luck
ready
meets opportunity.
This meets that meets the opportunity.
Becomes opportunity. I don't know. And also, like, was there like a moment that summer that you were like, I'm a new me, or was it grudge?
Yes.
Okay, so what was that?
So after the final performance of the East Side,
Yeah.
My friend Gayong was in the cast, and
Yeah.
she invited Min Jin Lee to come see the show.
Oh my God.
And so then
That's
at the
wild.
end of the show, I walked out, and then Min greeted me, and she said, do you know what you're doing this summer? And so I said, no, I don't know. And she said, do you want to come work for me? So I said, yeah. So then that summer I was kind of like a creative assistant with her.
Wow.
And then there was a day that we had this conversation where I said, I'm really not sure what I want to do. I really want to write musicals, but I don't want to be weird. And then Min, because I thought it was, because in my mind still artist equaled weird outsider. So I didn't want to be weird, which is so funny. Like, that's just a young person thing to like not want to be weird.
Of course, but it is still so.
Yeah.
It is so real. Like that's the majority of why so many people don't do so many things.
Totally. And then Min said to me, she was like, do you think I'm like
weird.
other ladies like my age? And like, she was like, nah, I'm totally weird and I love it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh my gosh. Like, well, also Min was then one of my first mentors who was an Asian American woman writer.
Yes.
Korean American female writer. And so who just gave me so much advice that summer. And then but that was the one that really stuck with me. I realized, like, it's like such a lesson that you like you're supposed to learn as a child. But I was like, maybe being different and weird are our strengths. Like maybe that's what our strengths are.
Wow.
And so, but it really hit me then, I think. So then it was like all of those events colliding to create the time that I said, okay, I'm not going to be pre-med anymore.
That must have been the coolest feeling. Like,
yeah, it was
wow.
such a relief. It was such a relief. And then the pandemic hit.
Right.
And then theater shut down.
Yeah, and I guess that you made it into an opportunity to find something else that also worked for you.
Yeah, totally.
I think so many people our age or earlier or whatever are just like so scared to take a risk and scared to do something, especially to look like an embarrassment or to look weird amongst many people. But really, it seems like there were two people in this case whose opinions mattered.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like we're so worked up all the time about like what people think, but actually, it really just matters what like the people who matter.
I think a lot of it was just like the practicality of it. I think I still ultimately am a big planner, and I am still like a really type A person. And I think that's what deterred me for a long time of going into such an unpredictable field. But then I think, first of all, I realized most fields are actually pretty unpredictable, no matter how predictable you think they are. Yeah. But also, I think having like a really clear plan and a lot of contingency plans, because I was constantly making plans and contingency plans. And
I guess let this be a testament to the falsification of the idea that you cannot have a plan B. I remember like people were telling me, maybe even my own dad, in pursuing the arts, in pursuing like a creative field, like you should not have a plan B. If you have a plan B, then you're, setting yourself up for giving up. It's almost like a weight off of your shoulders. Like you can actually still be a planner. You can actually have other things that you're interested in or other plans down the line or like exit strategies. If anything, that might be helpful for what you need in order for you to actually go about the dream. TM.
Here's what's happened if I reach my goals. Here's what's going to happen if I don't reach my goals. And then just continuously trying to make sure I reach the goals.
Which is interesting because I think that, being surrounded by other artists, it's almost like the opposite. There's this aversion to like wanting to be organized on top of your shit, or like, because somehow that is also kind of like against the identity of an artist. So whereas we're like at one point you were thinking, oh, like doing art is kind of like not meshing with who I think I am.
Totally.
I think a lot of artists feel like it's like if they wake up on time or if they have a structure or a schedule, that's gonna not jam with the images that we have of what it takes to be like a successful artist.
Totally. It just made me realize there's just so many different ways to be an artist, and an artist is actually a profession. So just like you'll meet a lot of different, there are doctors with very different personalities. And there are artists with very different personalities as well.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a huge planner. Like my to-do list is right over there. That notebook, you see that notebook, is that whole chonky section is all just to-do lists.
Getting organized.
Every single day, I just write down all the things I have to do and what time I'm going to do it down to the hour. So it says like 1 to 3:30 Eric on there.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
You're in the to-do list. Yeah. I have my to-do list, and I do everything in 1 to 2 hour chunks. And then I transition on to the next thing. And, you know,
whether or not you finish it? Because that's sometimes that I get a little bit bogged down by that.
Sometimes if I'm really in it, like if I'm in the middle of a song and I'm really vibing, then I will disregard my to-do list and move those things the next day. I think I have a system where I kind of know how long things are going to take me. So like I know this chapter is going to take me 2 hours to write. Wow. So I'm going to allot 2.5 hours for it so that I feel ahead of the schedule.
Okay, that accuracy is good because for me, I'm getting there, but I still am just kind of like, I just want to get so much more done.
Yeah.
And so I end up, it's the middle of my day and I'm kind of like, oh, I'm running behind.
Yeah.
And one thing that's helpful for me to just remember is to not give into that and not to like fall into that trap because I think before I used to be someone who like thrived off of it, be like, I need to do so much more. There's so much more on my to-do list. Like I will not be good enough if I don't, you know, but now it's kind of like being a little bit more realistic and accurate about your capabilities.
No, I totally feel that. Like I used to be so, this is where we get into the being bored thing. So I used to be so busy all the time. Like I don't know how as a teenager I would wake up so early and then review my homework and then go to school and then do school and then do homework while I'm at school and then finish the homework and then go to tennis and then like be on the do all the extracurriculars, go home and then practice this, do this, and then finish all the homework and then still have time to like write musicals after. Like I was like, what?
Bionic. Like, high school is bionic. It's kind of like I used to be so much more. I used to be so much more capable. But it's also just that it's like that is your life. That is the life that is granted to you and is dictated to you.
The biggest revelation I had about adulthood, I think, after graduating college was like when I was a kid, I didn't really understand like phrases like TGIF because I was like Friday, like we have to do homework on the weekend. Like the weekend isn't a weekend, the rest time. The weekend is time to do homework and your extracurriculars, you know. Whereas and even college, it's like weekend is time for club meetings and extracurriculars. Whereas as an adult, generally speaking, the weekend is just the weekend. It's kind of nice.
And no one really tells you how to spend weekends as an adult. You kind of have to figure it out and be intentional. Like if you're going to rest and recharge, you're going to rest and recharge. You can't be doing something else a while. Like it's not that
I know.
simple.
Right. My first 2 years out of graduating, I was doing so many things. Like I was just like running left and right and doing all this stuff. And like now I'm settled in a place where I'm just working and writing and just kind of doing my job. All of the like, excitement is over, and then now it's not over, but it's like it's past. All the craziness has passed, and I now feel like I'm not like super confused all the time.
But on the other hand, kind of like what you were saying is like that I would figure that makes more room for the boredom and the calmness and the like. How do you?
I love being bored.
Yeah. How do you make it work for you?
I think it's because you probably relate to this, like spending so many years of your life constantly on the go.
Yes.
And I think also I had this mission really since I was 15, but since the moment I also decided not to be pre-med anymore, I had this mission that I was like, I want to break into the industry, and these are all the different things that I'm gonna have to do to get there. And I was like constantly, my freshman year roommate taught me about networking because she's in finance, and I had never even heard of networking before freshman year, and she like blew my mind. She taught me about networking. Yeah. So like then I it was kind of fun. Like it was like, all the emails I can find and try to email. I was cold emailing people all the time, like trying to reach out and trying to like write things that I could showcase as this is my work. And so like, I think I was in such a like go mode for so many years that now I feel this extreme sense of peace where it's like, I am finally doing the thing I always dreamed of doing. And I finally feel comfortable, and I finally feel like I always felt like it's not enough until this. And now I'm like, it's enough. I feel enough.
That's what changed.
I think there were certain things in my life that I wanted to achieve, and I think I have now achieved them. at least as long as like the projects that I'm currently working on pan out, I think those are the things I always dreamed of. And now I'm doing them. And actually that is really what I wanted to be doing. It was less about like, I want to see it on the stage, and more like, I want to be in the studio developing a show with actors and with a director. And this summer I got to do that with my new musical Endless.
Yeah.
And I must have sounded so silly, because every day I was literally like telling someone like, this is my dream. Like, It was so fun. And even there was a day before we even started the workshop where we did pre-production, where I got to talk with my orchestrator Scott and my arranger music director Adam and Ian Chan, who we met on the east side.
So
we
cool.
met on the east side.
That come up is wild.
Yeah. So we got in a room and we just talked through the songs up to down, and talked about the intention behind the songs and how we wanted to orchestrate them and how we wanted to flesh them out. And I was like quaking, because I was like, this is my dream job. I was like, this is my dream job. Yeah. And then we got to go into rehearsal, and then hearing the actors sing, Broadway actors singing the songs I made up in my brain, like out loud. It was like euphoric.
Yeah, like, it's like seeing the world that you created come to life.
It was crazy. That's why I think musical theater is magical, because it's literally seeing the world you created come to life. So I was literally sitting there like, this is my dream.
Wow.
So I don't really, it's kind of, that's why I'm really excited for the production. Yeah. And like, I really look forward to it, but it's really, that is the part that is my dream, is like the development,
the process
and the development, and sharing it with my friends and the people I love. So it's kind of like, I just feel this sense of peace of, I'm not trying to get here anymore. I'm finally here. I feel like I've been trying to get here for basically my whole life. And now it's like, I'm finally here. It's like if you always dreamed of going to Disney World, and now you're at Disney World. And imagine if you just got to like stay at Disney World all the time. It's like, maybe it gets boring, but it's not in a bad way. It's it's like, I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, I get to be here, and even if there's nothing to do, I'm still here.
Yeah. How do you, I mean, now that you're living, like, for lack of a better term, like, you're living the fantasy. I mean, like, on days when I would imagine it doesn't feel as much like the fantasy Disney World.
Yeah, totally.
Or just like, what is that even like? Yeah. How do you keep that alive?
Yeah, I think there were definitely moments where I realized sometimes you actually can't get too emotionally attached to the art you're making, because not everything pans out the way that you think it will. Yeah. But you got to be emotionally attached enough that you want to do it, and you're working on it, and you're excited to write it. And so I think like a lot of that is having fun in the process, no matter where the process takes you, of like enjoying and remembering like, why did I love this so much? Yeah. And I think what I'm really lucky I just love writing songs, and I just love making stories. So it's just really fun to do all those in a lot of different capacities. So even if like this one doesn't pan out or this one doesn't pan out, it's okay, because I have like 6 other stories that I love, and like 6 other protagonists that I just love so much that it's okay, like if this egg falls out of the basket, there's a lot of other eggs.
That passion, but also the hustle that you just have.
Yeah, I think it's funny because it's like it was always a hustle until now, but now it's not a hustle anymore. It's just, I got this idea, or like, I got this idea.
Wow.
And I get to explore this idea, and it's like, I actually have the resources and the people that I can now explore this idea. So it's just like a total sense of, I think a lot of the peace comes from realizing that no project is too precious, but every project still is precious.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You're not holding on to any one thing to like make you happy. Like you're there already.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it also comes from like, I live so close to my family now because my family's in Connecticut now and I'm here. So I go back home and I see my family all the time. Yeah. And like June and I live together. So like there's a lot of peace of like, because sort of peace and certainty of all these uncertain things. Because I think a lot of my uncertainty also came from like family things, like, am I gonna find a partner? Am I going to like do the things in life that I want to do beyond just career? Yeah. And now I think I feel very settled.
Because I mean, you have those outside of just career. I mean, I know plenty of people who would probably just be focusing on just the career that you've cultivated for yourself. But you also are living in relationship. You're engaged. I think you're probably the youngest of my friends who's engaged.
I think I might be 2 out of my friends. June is such a constant in my life, I think, and also like it's almost like connected because June taught me about Shimchung, the folktale that Dive is about.
Yes,
so
tell
like,
us more.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because everybody has this idea that my grandmother told me Shimchung, and I don't know where that came from. Like I think someone. Yeah. I think some interviewer or some article wrote that my grandma told me.
Because it does sound nice. You're
like
Korean.
Right. And so, but actually June was the one who told me about Shimchung. And then I forgot about it for 3 years. And then 3 years later, I was like, Shimchung.
Yeah. That's bordering the TikTok moment.
Yes.
No?
That's leading me to the TikTok moment. And that was also kind of, it was really strategic also. It was like, there was the element of, it had always been my dream to write something for Disney when I was a kid. Yeah. So there was that element. I needed something for my senior thesis. And my grandpa had just passed away. And I had realized I hadn't written anything about Korean culture. And so there were a lot of emotional reasons why I really just knew I had to write Shimchung at the moment. But I also, I always call it Shimchung, even though it's called Dive.
Sure.
But I also realized that I wanted to have a show that I could kind of like hand to a producer, hand to an agent and say, this is my project and this is what I did and this is what I'm capable of doing. And I decided that Dive was going to be that for me. And so that was why it was those emotional reasons and the practical reasons that I started writing that project.
Yeah. But how did, because you have a very good gauge, and this is what because you like you have a very good gauge of what other people like want from you, or you know, like when you're talking about Eastside, when you're talking about this project, it's like you have the vision for it, and you have the vision for how other people are going to see it. Like it's gonna be a comedy, it's not gonna have a break, whatever. Like it seems like you have a good finger on the pulse of what other people want and how they perceive your work. Yeah,
I mean, that's my entire artistic process always, no matter what I'm writing. So when I'm writing a song, it's really, I'm like, okay, what, if I were an audience member, what would I expect and want to see here? Wow. And then I look for it, and then I find it, and then I flesh it out. So it's kind of like, I think we talked about this at one point too. There's a lot of artists who create for themselves and create for the artistic process. And I actually feel like I create for the audience always. Like I only, every single project I've ever done, I never have done, oh, this is just for me. To me, there's no, like, I wouldn't have any desire to create if I didn't know that it was for this friend, or if it's for this, like, Dive is for the, I always wished there was a Korean Disney princess, and I knew that there were other people in the world who felt that way too, and other and kids growing up who it could really benefit, and I wanted to make it for them. And I think that's why I'm always very audience driven. So Dive was also like that.
I feel like that's really unique, you know, like, and it makes so much sense to me, but especially, you know, if you're talking about like a comedian or an actor, I feel like it's very often about like, how do I want to see me?
Whoa, that's
or
so
like,
true.
You know, like, it's like, it is about the audience, but it's also like about how the audience will perceive you. Like, I feel like, and where it sounds like for you, it's like, the target is on the kind of person that you want this thing to be for. Yeah. And it's perhaps less about okay, so then how is that going to change how they view me as the artist? Yeah. Perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
Or like, I don't know.
Oh, no.
What a funnel in.
Totally, because I don't even want them to view me as an artist. Like, because, I would rather them just look at the art, you know?
Yeah. Because you famously or infamously don't want to be famous. Right? Like, at all.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like, I have always had a dream of my work being famous, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
I always loved the idea that I could be walking down the street and some kid could be singing a song that I wrote and have no idea that I wrote it. And I really love, I think for me, like, personal community is really important. So that's why a lot of my projects, as I said, I write for the people in my community and the fun we're going to have experiencing it together.
Wow.
And talking about it together. And like, that's what I'm envisioning when I'm writing the project. Like, oh, I can't wait for like my mom to see this.
Yes.
I sound like a child.
No, but that sounds really, it sounds really healthy because I
Yeah.
mean, you care so much about your personal relationships,
Yeah.
June, and your family. But some people are out here creating stuff so that they can, it's like they can win back their family's approval or for something that's empty or something that's not there.
Right. No, I think for me, like, it's always just been like, I think I'm just really lucky in that my family has been really supportive always and really encouraged us all to dive into our passions. It's kind of the feeling of sharing the experience. It's the specific feeling of sharing the experience, I think. So, and because of that, that kind of has no attachment to fame or no fame, because it's basically like whether I achieved fame or didn't achieve fame, I would still get to share the art that I made with my family. And so that's why I don't think I really have any aspirations of fame as a person, because it's kind of like, oh, that feels almost irrelevant to why I'm making the art. And I'm also like a little scared of fame. Like, it's a little scary.
Sure, yeah.
I love the idea that, you know, you can write a piece of art, or you can write something, or you can compose something that could be known all over the world. I think that's really, really cool. It's more like, I don't know if I as an artist need to be attached.
But if we're taking like just in the zeitgeist, this might not even be close to what you want. But is it kind of like it'd be cool to create a Wicked and then
totally
go into the background?
Totally, yeah. I mean, like that's kind of what Steven Schwartz did. Like, I feel like I know what he looks like because I'm a fan.
I don't.
But you probably don't, and most people probably don't know what he looks like. But everybody knows Defying Gravity. You know, it's like everybody knows Let It Go, but like very few people could pick Bobby and Kristen Anderson Lopez out from a crowd.
Yeah.
And I think that is cool. Like, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I have a lot of premonitions.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's go Final Destination style. Like, whoa.
This is also why sometimes I write really, really fast.
Yeah.
Like, I wrote the first draft of Endless in 2 months, because sometimes I get like a premonition, or sometimes I'll get an idea for a project and I'll be like, I feel like I have to write this real fast, or someone else is gonna do it. You know, humans are so infinitely creative that if I don't get this idea out, someone else is gonna get it out before me. So like that's sometimes where I feel premonition type things. But like with Dive, for example, I felt like if I didn't write Dive, they're gonna make a Korean Disney princess. Like I was like, if I don't do this, somebody else is gonna make a Korean Disney princess before me. So it's like, I gotta do it. So then, even though I knew I wasn't writing for Disney, I wanted the world to know that I could write. Like, if they're looking for someone to write the Korean Disney princess, I was like, I'm here. Wow. I would love to do it, and this is what I can do. So that was the purpose of writing Dive, as well as like the familial connection, the emotional connection was I wanted to say, hey, I can write a Korean Disney princess if anyone needs one.
Yeah.
And so then the night that I had the idea for it, that's when I had the premonition. So then I couldn't fall asleep that night.
And are we talking like That's So Raven, like visions? Like, are we like what?
Okay, here's what happened.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I was lying.
No, I'm seated.
Okay, here's what happened. So actually, it's a kind of more extended story. So it was pandemic times, and I had a dream. It actually starts the night before. So I had this dream that I went to the ocean, and my family and I went to the beach, and the water, like there's like the beach here and the buildings here, and then there's all this sand here. And I had a dream that I'd never seen this. I've been to this beach a couple times, that the water had risen all the way up to here, and the water was like here. And that was the full dream. So the next morning, my mom...
I was like, and then you were like, Dive. Sorry, no, I'm going to shut up.
So the next morning, my mom... It was a beautiful day outside. Oh, by the way, in my dream, it was like a stormy weather. That's why the water had risen. So the next day, it was a beautiful day outside. My mom said, let's go to the beach. And so I said, okay. So we all went to the beach. We were going to the beach pretty frequently.
Yeah.
As we're on the way to the beach, I told my mom the dream I had. I was like, I dreamed that it was like a weird storm and the water had come all the way up here. It was weird. And then I was just, telling her my dream, whatever. Normal telling her my dream stuff. As we're on our way to the beach, the weather starts darkening. The sky starts darkening. by the time we get to the beach, it's windy and rainy and weird. And when we get out of the car, the water had risen all the way to the buildings, exactly like in my dream. Also, there was no one else at the beach because the weather was like really bad. And we got out of the car, and my mom and I looked at each other, and we were like, that is weird. Like, that is so weird. Because that was exactly how I described in my dream. It never looked that way before. The coast was long. How could the water from the wind go? So then we didn't stay too long because I was creeped out. So I was like, let's go home. It was like an hour. It was like an hour and a half drive to the beach. So we stayed for like 10, 15 minutes, but it was we were weirded out. So we started going home. On the way home, I was in the back, so I started writing down. I started coming up with the story for Dive. And so, because I had the idea, and it had been percolating, but I hadn't really like sat down and, put pen to paper. So I was in the back on a Google Doc on my phone, writing the story to Dive. I was getting really excited about it. I was like, oh, I'm excited about this story. And then I got home, and it was dark, and we went to bed. And then that night, I could not fall asleep because I was like, I took out my phone and I wrote TikTok. I did. I took out the notes app, and I just had this feeling that I was going to post this on TikTok and that it was going to go viral and that was going to like change my life. And so I literally wrote TikTok idea, and then I wrote, hi, I'm Julia, and like there's no Korean Disney princess, so I decided to make one myself. And this is just after I'd gotten out of bed and I'd written the first song for Dive, which actually wasn't Dive at the time. The song wasn't Dive and the show wasn't called Dive, but I'd written the first song for Dive. And then finally, once I'd put the idea in my notes app, then I finally fell asleep. Next morning, I got up and deleted it because I thought, oh, that's stupid. So I deleted it. But then, and I said, I'm not going to post anything on TikTok until I have a full draft of the show and a bunch of songs so that I don't have to feel like pressure to create content, so that I can feel like I can write this show separate of creating content. And then once the show's done, I'll create the content. And then it took 2 years. It took a year and a half for me to finish a draft of Dive that I was happy with. And then the day I finished, then I downloaded TikTok and I posted the TikTok, and then it went viral. And it went viral. Julia. Wait, you know what's crazy? You know what I just realized? It went viral while my family and I were at the beach. A year and a half later. We were walking at the beach. It was a different beach though, so it's not as mystical, but we were walking.
No, still, I don't care. The details don't matter. You were at the beach.
We were walking on the beach, and suddenly, and my mom's like, so what is this TikTok thing anyway? And I was like, oh, well, as you can see. And then I was like, wait. I think something's happening. Sort of refreshing. Because I was like, oh, look, well, you can see, it's a random algorithm. So it has 200 views now. Oh, now it has 300 views. I was like, wait, now it has 400 views. So then I was like refreshing. And then suddenly, it was like, and then, that was the premonition.
There was no Korean Disney princess, so I decided to make my own.
The fish in the sea can't stop me. All of the waves in the world can't rock me. I'm on a mission in G. Just watch me go. Dive.
Well, because I literally thought you were kind of like, I had this idea, let me post the TikTok. No.
There was premonition.
You had ammunition behind that.
Ammunition and premonitions. Yes.
And time.
Yeah.
You were
a lot of time.
Sitting on that thing for a long time.
Like almost 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, there's people out here being like, why haven't I made a viral TikTok yet? Well, it's not
that
like
TikTok
that just,
took 2 years to make.
Yeah.
And I didn't have TikTok downloaded on my phone the whole time because I was like, I'm not going to look at it. I'm not going to look at it until it's time to unleash
the beast.
But I wasn't even thinking about it like that because you never think something is a premonition until after it comes true.
Wow. Okay, yes, because I said this to you before, but it really just like when I hear your this story and this all the things, it's just like destiny.
I don't know. It's so crazy.
But it's not just luck is what I want to turn attention to.
Yeah, hopefully.
Like, you've been at it and you've been putting your intention and your work behind this dream, even when you didn't exactly know what it was going to look like for a long time.
Totally.
And consistently.
Totally. I mean, honestly, like, that the viral thing, yes, it is what kind of brought my name into the conversation, but like what really changed a lot for me was meeting my agent. And Kevin, my agent,
Hey.
was introduced he's gonna watch this was introduced to me by Diane Borger from ART. So like, you know, it still goes back to the East Side.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, it wasn't like it was just the East Side, because then it was also
well, yeah, because he wasn't gonna
just
sign me until much later.
Yes,
so like, he
more
saw
stuff.
he saw East Side stuff, he saw Thumbelina stuff, he saw Jack stuff, and then it wasn't until really Dive stuff, and then everything coming together. And then he started looking at my other work, and then he said, "Okay, let's work together." But yeah, it was like all the different things leading up to it. I was like trying to really be ready for if anything ever broke through. So leading up to that, I had my website, and I had made my music Instagram. You know, I had things so that if anything popped through, someone could find me really easily.
Yes.
So like, that's like my unsolicited advice.
Hey, yeah. What other advice? Like,
yeah, it's like be ready for somebody to find you. It's the opportunity meets the
being undeniable.
It's like, you know, it's the opportunity meets the luck meets
hard work meets.
Yeah, that thing.
Right,
It's like you get everything ready in case you ever run into a producer on the street, and then, you know, something miraculous happens, and then they say, "Oh, what do you do?" And you say, "Well, I'm a composer." And then they say, "Oh, do you have a website?" You know, like, you got like have all that stuff ready and have your demos
Your
ready.
arsenal, your
Exactly.
briefcase, your portfolio.
Exactly. So they can like hear your stuff and like make sure it's ready, and like that, see that you've done all this other stuff too.
Have your shit ready. Do your job, do your part, so that when an opportunity presents itself, you are prepared. When I was in my like acting grind, I feel like I didn't totally channel this. It was more like, oh, when will someone give me the opportunity? It's a huge slap in the face when someone does give you an opportunity or a little hint at an opportunity, and then you don't have the website, you don't have the reel or the video to back it up. Like, that is more painful, I feel like. And so whether that means making the website, whether that means putting the shit out there on the Instagram, even if that doesn't feel like your jam or your vibe, there is validity in doing so. Sponges, this is the advice that we are here for. It's time to absorb. Okay, it's time to sponge, it's time to soak in, it's time to lather up, and it's time to internalize before we are then able to clean the dish.
Because you never know what's going to break through. I was working on a bunch of different projects, and the book I started writing then, that was before any of this happened. And now that's going to be the first thing that comes out.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Transitioning into that.
I don't think I would be doing it if not for my brother. Like, I think it really came because from the idea of we want to write a book together.
Yeah.
Right. In the last 3 years, I've worked a lot in musical theater. I've worked a lot in film and TV, and I've worked a lot in literature. And it's so interesting. I always thought these industries were really similarly run because they're so adjacent, you know? They're all storytelling. So I'm like, oh, they're all storytelling and they're all entertainment. So I always thought they were culturally really similar, but they're actually so different. Yeah. And the process is so different. So like a musical, people say it takes an average of 7 years to get to Broadway, whereas a book, from the moment you sign your book deal, it'll take a year and a half. It kind of opened up this whole new world where I realized, wow, this is really something that we could be doing right now and have coming out. And I was a musical theater writer first, but now I will be an author first.
Yeah.
So.
Is that like crazy for you? Like that idea?
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. It is kind of crazy, but it's cool. My brother and I, so it's our debut novel, and it's like both our names together on the cover, which feels really nice.
Is it like first name, and then one last name?
No, we were gonna do that, but then we realized we were going to, but we realized it makes it sound like we're married, so then we couldn't. We did two separate. But it's like the best collaboration ever to be working with my sibling because we like share a brain. So like.
But yeah, like that's rare too.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, it's funny. It's like because we grew up with all the same lore, and then we read all the same stuff, and we watched all the same stuff, and we know what each other have been through in life. So we totally grew up with the same lore, and it's so easy to communicate. And there's also no boundaries. So it's like I can be like, 1 a.m. I have an idea, or like it'll be like holiday. I'll be like, he'll be like, I have an idea, or we'll be like, oh, should we work at 10, I'm kind of tired. And then 10:15, oh, actually, okay, let's work. Like, it's just, we can just, it's like we're one person.
It's not like just a professional relationship.
Totally. And we are like, his strengths are my weaknesses, or like my weaknesses are his strengths, and his weaknesses are my strengths.
Oh, that's great.
We have these like deep, like spiritual reflections on what it means to be a human and alive and a young person today. Here's what it's about. So it's called The Last Tiger by Brad Rue and Julia Rue. It is a YA fantasy. I call it YA fantasy romance, inspired by our grandparents' actual love story during the Japanese occupation of Korea. So it's about a boy and a girl who come from vastly different circumstances, living in the tiger colonies under the rule of the Dragon Empire. And they are these magical powers that dictate what people can do. And they ultimately become, it's a friends to enemies to lovers, though there is a love triangle. Friends to enemies to lovers, fantasy. It's really about learning to find yourself and kind of find love even in a time of oppression and great suffering, which is something that like the Korean people have experienced over hundreds and hundreds of years. Since it's how do you find yourself within all of that suffering and within when you're under oppression, and how can you still lead with love and have love prevail during those times.
I love that. I also think that, at least in the mainstream, and my knowledge is not that plentiful, but I feel like in terms of that time period, in terms of the only book that I can think of is Pachinko that is like about that subject.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's like really, it's one of the darkest times in Korean history, and our grandparents are still alive today that were alive during that time, and that were the people who were forced to change their names and learn to speak an entirely new language, and the title The Last Tiger actually comes from an actual tradition from that time where the Japanese would hunt down tigers. Tigers are essentially the national animal of Korea, and they would kill the tigers, and the tiger's actually extinct now. In Korea because of that. And so it's in our book, the tiger represents the culture of Korea and how the Dragon Empire is essentially trying to wipe out the tiger colonies.
I feel it's so many of like the best parts. I'm feeling a little bit of like Last Airbender, a little bit,
totally Last Airbender vibes in there.
Yeah. What do you hope people will kind of like walk away with? I know that's the classic, book talk question.
Totally. I mean, we always really talk about this book as a way to. It's not only just a window into the past. It really is a way to look at right now and to think about like, even though it is fantasy, it's inspired by so many real things, and to know that like if our ancestors, if our grandparents were still alive today, were able to make it through these really, really difficult times and still come out of it and come out of it with love and family, then like maybe we can also meet whatever moment we are facing today. Yeah, I'm just so excited to give it to my grandma. I'm so excited.
Sharing
at the beginning of every part, there's 3 parts, and the parts are named after words in Korean that don't exist in any other language. And at the beginning of each part, there's a set of quotations from my grandma and my grandpa. And so I'm really excited to give it to her and show her that part.
Wow.
Basically, we're right now, where we are is in ARC copy mode. So that means that advanced readers copies are being printed like probably as we're speaking, and we're sending them to other authors to get blurbs. And so like, what's written on the back of the book. And then I'm going to start, like, we're going to do our big publicity push, and then it comes out on July 29th. So then it'll be in bookstores.
That'll be. We're gonna have to circle back and check back in.
I know. It'll be crazy. Yeah, I'm really excited, and I'm a little scared to see, because when something goes out in the world, you can't control what people think about it. And we worked so hard, and we love these characters so much. Like, we feel like these characters are people to us. Brad and I have been living in our brains with these characters for so many years that we're just so excited for the world to see it. I think it's gonna be like a big surprise to people, because I haven't talked much about my author life online at all, because I've been waiting to kind of be like, surprise.
Boom. Yeah, like the TikTok moment. Yeah,
Totally.
You know how to create a moment. Let's put it that
So
way.
I'd like to create a moment out of it. So yeah, I think it's gonna be like a big cover reveal moment.
Is there anything else that you want to share for the truthies?
The truthies. Is that what it's called?
That's what we're going with right now. We need to do whatever we can to brand this thing, you know?
Go out there, have fun, do what you love. If you can, it's okay. If you can't right now, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming, Julia Rue. I'm so happy we did this.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.